I've always wanted to put a video out on my YouTube about Bryan and Brent and what I think their connection is. Do you think they have a connection? A lot of people don't, but I believe that they do. Did you know that they're both from PA? They're both from PA. They might not have known each other then, but whenever Bryan moved to WSU, Brent, I believe, was already there. And they only lived like Steptoe and Coffee House apartments are very like 2 minutes apart, not even. They're both on WSU campus. The night of November 13th, 2022, I do not think that Bryan did this alone. I don't. I really don't. Originally I did, but then whenever I got wind of Brent, I knew he hadn't done it alone. Those two know each other. They absolutely know each other. I might be wrong, but I might be right. Bryan, whenever he got arrested, okay, the shoot-off was December 15th, okay? So that was also the day that Bryan got stopped in Indiana, and then he told the cop, you know, there's a lot of coincidences in this freaking case. So Bryan told the police officer, did you know that there's a shoot-off, a SWAT out, you know, in Pullman, you know, trying to deflect the conversation of the cop. At the time, I'm like, wait, how the fuck does Bryan know that there's a shootout for Brent on the 15th? How did he know that? In my opinion, because Bryan and Brent, I believe, knew each other, I believe that Bryan and Brent both were involved in what happened to the Idaho 4. Or Brent might not have been involved, but Brent might have known about it. If Bryan did it alone, Brent could have known and could have... Now here comes my theory, like my theory from the get-go. As soon as I knew about Papa Roger and Inside Looking and ICU2. ICU2 was Brent's Facebook profile, and he had his eye as a picture saying ICU2. Bryan, I believe, was Papa Roger. A lot of people are saying it wasn't him, but I also believe that Bryan was also Inside Looking. And Inside Looking's profile pic on Reddit was a picture of an eye as well. And I've already gone into this in great detail on my TikTok. I'll share it with you here. I'll share a few TikToks with you guys to show you how much in depth I had gone into this back whenever it first happened. So the theory is, and this is not yet confirmed, but I don't know if you know Inside Looking, but Inside Looking is 99.9% sure, I'm sure, that it's Bryan. He had a profile pic with his eye. I've touched on this a lot in my previous posts. So basically, Bryan had a profile picture of his eye for Inside Looking. And then Brent Kopacka, he had that picture with ICU2. So Inside Looking and ICU2. So Brent Lee knew Bryan, or he knew what he did. There's some connection there. And my theory is that Bryan might have ratted or done something to Brent Lee for him to get swatted out. You know, proving that the profile picture of Inside Looking is actually Bryan. So to me, Inside Looking and ICU2 kind of go hand in hand. I've said this a lot on my TikTok, I swear to God. And so Bryan told Brent, perhaps, or Brent knew about it, perhaps, and maybe Brent had threatened Bryan that he would rat him out, or that he put a tip in or something. And Bryan being Bryan, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if he would have done that, but the 911 call hasn't been released, right? The 837 call hasn't been released. I think because that was Bryan. So since the 911 call was not released, you know what? Nor was the Idaho 4 case, Idaho 4 call. That wasn't released either. Could you imagine that the 911 call for Brent's situation was Bryan, and the one for Bryan was Brent? And that's why neither one of those calls are shared with the public. I just thought about that. But that's the only way I would know. That's the only thing I can think of when it comes to Brent anyways. I think that if that's the case, Bryan called it in, and then they went there, and Bryan probably lied about threatening his roommates. All right? Because we've heard the dispatch call. A lot of us have. And the dispatch call has no mention of that. None. So in my opinion, there was never any roommates being threatened. Bryan did, in fact, call it in at 8:37 on the 14th, the evening of the 14th. And then they made their way over to Brent's and then did this whole, whatever you want to call it. I don't call it a standoff. They were too calm. I need to sneeze. It wasn't a standoff at all. I don't feel it was a standoff. I need to sneeze again. Now, by the time I post this new body cam footage is out. Not the entire thing, because the rest of it will be tomorrow night with Lana. But for tonight, I have posted it. Lana, it's all on Lana's channel. I would recommend going watching it on Lana's channel instead of mine. Although if you do want to get a higher volume, I did turn it up on mine. But besides that, I still recommend you go see Lana. Anyways, and that's truth and transparency, by the way. But that's what I feel. And I feel that Brent's not perfect in all of this, I don't think. I honestly think that Brent might have had something to do with Buddy. That's a whole other thing. Because I know you guys must have seen pictures of Brent's apartment and his best friend's montage or shrine of Brent's, and and all those disturbing things in the background, and the collar, what looks to be Buddy's collar. Like, I don't think Brent was a perfect guy. Brent was obsessed with machetes and knives and stuff, and allegedly so was Bryan. They found a lot of knives, but not the knife from Bryan's search warrants. So that's basically it. That's really it. Like, that's how I think. I don't know how they met and whatnot. Like I said at the beginning, they're both from PA. So whether or not they met there or not, I don't know. But it's for sure that they probably met in Washington, because Bryan was a TA at Washington State University, and Brent worked at the university, and he stayed at the coffee house apartments, and Bryan was at Steptoe, again, 2 minutes apart, not even. And the night of the unalivings, there was a gap, a few moments, like 9 minutes, that Bryan was parked on, what was it, Nevada, which was right behind Brent's, for 9 minutes without moving. Did Brent go see him? Or did he pick up Brent at that time and then they went together? Like, and that's all in whether or not Brent had something to do with the actual unalivings of Maddie, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana. We don't know for sure, and I don't think we'll ever know. Hopefully we do, because did you know that Brent's case is still open? They are not giving any information on it. It's still an open case.
The whole mystery behind Brent and the Idaho 4 is fucking crazy. But like I said, could you imagine if the 911 caller for Brent was actually Bryan? Because if they were to play the 911 call and it is Bryan, could you imagine the backlash? Same goes for Idaho 4. Could you imagine if the actual 911 caller was in fact Brent? Like, we already know that Hunter was there and everything, and he supposedly used Dylan's phone, calling in an unconscious person and all of that, you know. But was that the call? Wasn't there a call at 3-something a.m. as well? Like, makes you wonder. Really? Honestly, I just wanted to come on here because I see the connections, and not a lot of people do. But those that do see it will see it with me. And yeah, thanks for being here. I'm going to share with you guys some little receipts of things as to why I think these things. Honestly, that is all I wanted to share with you guys in my theory with Bryan and Brent.
Editing Sonia here. I forgot to mention Brent also has a Elantra, but it's silver. Anyways, I've posted a whole bunch of TikToks on here. This is going to be a long video, you guys. That's why I was kind of like not hesitating to make it, because I knew once I put my feet into it, it would be a long video, because I have a ton of TikToks that back up what I'm always thought. Some are mine, some are Crime Circus's. Like I said, Crime Circus, well, I don't think I mentioned it here, but Crime Circus is definitely somebody that I really, really, his opinion, his investigating is freaking top notch for me. It's in my vibe, you know, it shares the same energy that I have. I really, really do enjoy Crime Circus. I know he's controversial for a lot of people, but his investigative work is very good, you guys. There are some things I don't agree with, but generally speaking, I agree with a lot of what Drip Drop has put out there. So, all fair use to Drip Drop. I love him so much. So, a lot of his videos are going to be in here. The parts of Brent and Bryan. That's what this video is about. That's what I'm posting. You guys, I'm watching Crime Circus right now. But before I do post those parts from Drip Drop, because you know I love Drip Drop, I love Crime Circus, and every time he comes out with a video, I tag him and I put his videos up in here, in several parts. So I have a whole playlist. Well, not a playlist, but they're in the Idaho playlist. Now, Brent Kopacka, let's talk about it just for a quick second, because I haven't gone too deep into Crime Circus yet, but there's one thing that he's talking about right now is Brent Kopacka. Now I have a thought or a theory, whatever. What if, because he did put a post about his eye, like I see you too, what if he knew what Bryan did and Bryan fabricated this whole thing and got Brent killed?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Crime Circus. My name's Drip Drop, and I'm your host as always. This is episode number 6 in my multi-part series on Bryan Kohberger, who allegedly made 4 college students pass away in Moscow, Idaho. Let's jump right into this video and start it with a boom. Brent Kopacka. He was a soldier that died in Pullman, Washington on December 15th because of SWAT team. This was a mere 24 to 48 hours after Bryan Kohberger had left the state of Washington, fleeing to Pennsylvania with his father. I think there's a lot of important questions that need to be asked about this, and a proper investigation must leave no stone unturned. Brent Kopacka was a soldier in his mid-30s. He served the United States overseas in Afghanistan. He had PTSD, depression, psychological issues, and a lot of trauma that haunted him since he returned from Afghanistan. One thing that's quite interesting, he was apparently in the same division of the Army as the lead detective on this case, as well as the lead detective's brother. Apparently he's close in age to the lead detective's younger brother. Does that mean anything? Maybe, maybe not. But this is quite the coincidental passing, especially when you take into consideration the actual knife that was used in this crime. It was a United States Marine Corps issued knife with a leather sheath, and the sheath was left at the scene. Is it possible that Brent Kopacka left that sheath? Or was Bryan Christopher Kohberger trying to frame an innocent man? It's possible. There's a lot I've uncovered on this case with my deep dive research skills behind the scenes, and it needs to be discussed, so we shall. There was a little bit of confusion on the internet in the arrest affidavit if it was Johnson, Idaho or Johnson, Washington. Johnson, Washington is very close to Pullman, Washington, which is right where Bryan and Brent both lived. What's interesting about Johnson, Idaho is Brent Kopacka's parents lived in Pierce, Idaho, which is the next town over from Johnson, Idaho. Also, if you pull up their house on Street View, you'll see a somewhat familiar car in the driveway. It's a silver Hyundai Elantra that appears to match the years that we were all looking for. And on some of the footage we've seen, it wasn't exactly clear if it was a white Hyundai Elantra or a silver Hyundai Elantra that we were all looking for. Silver and white cars look very similar at night, especially on grainy surveillance and body cameras. It's also allegedly rumored that Brent Kopacka owned a white Hyundai Elantra that was parked at his apartment in Pullman, Washington. Now I'm going to direct you to the truck that can be seen in Brent Kopacka's parents' driveway. It's a big white truck, and we also all saw a big white truck drive by Kaylee, Maddie, and the hoodie guy on the surveillance footage that we saw. I'm going to play that right now for you. What do you think? Was that the same truck or not? Could be, it might be. I don't know. If you've seen, and you might recall the body camera footage when Bryan Kohberger and his father were pulled over 2 times in Indiana, one of the first things that Bryan's father mentioned was the shooting in Pullman, Washington. That shooting in Pullman, Washington, that was SWAT team shooting Brent Kopacka. You could see the sketched out look in Bryan's eyes. And you could especially see the deer in headlights look on Bryan's eyes when his father mentioned that they were heading to Pennsylvania. It's been reported that the 911 call was in reference to Brent threatening his roommates. But did Brent even have roommates? Nobody's come forward to say anything to the media, and it doesn't seem like the media has actually properly investigated the situation. The police department put out a press release, and it seems like the investigation ended right then and there. However, the investigation has not ended right here at Crime Circus. I'm still investigating. I think there may be a connection from Brent to Bryan. Somehow, some way, there must be. Just 1 week prior to Bryan fleeing the state and Brent passing away at the hands of SWAT team, Brent posted this on his social media. It was a close-up picture of his eye, and it said, "I see you too," which is quite interesting because it's a somewhat similar photo that Inside Looking was using on social media. Also, it's interesting his choice of words, "I see you too." Was this in reference to Bryan? Or is this completely unrelated? Personally, it seems very related, especially considering only 1 week later he would end up passed away and Bryan would end up fleeing the state. What does "I see you too" mean, and why did he spell it like that? I think this might be a key piece to this investigation. We might touch back on this important piece of information in an upcoming episode. Until then, moving on. Oh, look who it is, Pam again. Question 3. I'm sorry, I know I'm bad. When did Bryan move to Pullman? Police interview was in April? I believe that's question number 4. And I also believe that Bryan moved to Pullman, Washington in August of 2022. As for the interview, I believe that was in August or September, but I'm not 100% sure. Pam, question 4. I really think this is question 5, and I did say limit 1 question per person. But let's check this question out. Question 4. I'm a bad girl. Did you notice that it looks like the minute the warning went out in Pullman about the shooter, BCK, Bryan jumped in the car at 3 a.m.? Dad said at the pullover they had been driving for days without stopping. Timing and behavior can't just be coincidence. I think BCK was involved somehow. Well, for clarification, BCK is Bryan Kohberger. BLK is Brent Kopacka. I know this case is confusing. It's filled with doppelgangers and people with similar initials. There was a lot of J's in this case, and now we're dealing with a lot of B's. And personally, no, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think this needs to seriously be investigated to the fullest. Carl, my one question. Why do we have information on Bryan's phone locations, but not any search history? Well, that's because they tell us only what they want us to know. They don't have to list all of the information that they have inside of the search warrant. I do believe this investigation is still ongoing, and we're just not privy to all of the information that they have behind the scenes. They may not actually have any incriminating search history on Bryan's devices. We don't even know for sure if Bryan actually committed this crime just yet. He's presumed innocent, and he's maintaining his innocence at the moment, and he said that he's looking forward to being fully exonerated. He could have also bought a phone with an internet connection specifically for his dirty searches that he disposed of. You gotta remember that he went to college and he was studying these type of crimes, so he certainly would have done a lot of research on how to get away with this type of crime. Carol, question. I think Sigma Chi is guarding deep dark secrets. There are so many threads here. I'm still curious about Bryan Kohberger's cousin or childhood friend from Indiana. He knows of some secrets about Bryan Kohberger. Heard about him a while back and want more info. Well, many fraternities and sororities do hold many deep, dark secrets. It's part of being a member. You're not allowed to ever talk about what you do, and a lot of bad things do come from fraternities. As for any childhood friend, I wouldn't necessarily believe anything you read or see on the internet. People can easily make false claims without any proof to back it up. As far as I know, Bryan Kohberger never had a single friend in his entire life, but that's just my opinion. Alice. My biggest question regarding the case is how could 4 people be stabbed to passing without there having been a lot of noise? Screaming, shouting, cursing, falling, struggling, knocking things over, etc. Well, I do think there was quite a bit of noise in that house that night. The neighbor's camera picked up quite a bit of noise, as reported in the arrest affidavit. The dog was barking, there was whimpering, there was crying, there was a loud thud. There was so much noise that it most likely spooked Bryan Kohberger, and he fled as fast as he could. I think it was a brutally horrific scene that we could only imagine in our nightmares of what it was actually like being in there. P. My one question is, are the 2 surviving roommates now living their lives in public again, or are they in hiding, unfindable by interviewers and onlookers? Well, I've seen no reports of them being in public, so I'd imagine they are in hiding. One of them is potentially a key witness to this case. I'm sure they're both traumatized and have probably been having a lot of nightmares, and they lost some of their best friends that evening. If I was them, I wouldn't go in public. I think it's a good thing that no interviewers can find them, and they have no obligation to speak to anybody about this case ever. They're most likely in a safe place, and although some of us may wonder where they are and how they are, it's none of our business, and all we can do is wish them the best and say a little prayer for them. Griffer Bear. Question. After all of the info about the cell pings and Bryan's possible whereabouts, do we still think it's possible that Bryan was at the grub truck? Everybody at the grub truck was seen by multiple camera angles and recorded for the internet to look at. That video has been heavily analyzed and researched, and I haven't seen any information showing that Bryan was anywhere near the grub truck that night. Miss Marple. Hi Drip Drop, I love your coverage of the Idaho 4. My question is, can you find out if that was Bryan Kohberger's sister at the crime scene? I feel sure it is her, and if not, it is her double. I think it's a good chance it's his sister. If it's not, she should be in shock and awe because she truly does have a doppelganger living in Moscow, Idaho. I'm going to keep researching and investigating and try to find out one way or the other if it is her. Tiker. One question I have is, was he ever in the house prior to the night of the passing aways? He stalked the house on 12 previous occasions, late night or early morning. The night he decided to carry out the passing aways, did he know the sliding door would be unlocked? Unless he's attempted it previously and noticed a pattern of the door being left unlocked. I personally highly doubt that he was ever inside that house prior to the night of the crime. And the most simple answer is the door was probably left unlocked. Shahid. My question is, were the lights even on in the main areas of the house, or on period? And which rooms? Being it was 4 a.m. could be the prime reason Bryan Kohberger didn't pass away Dylan, is that it was too dark to see her. As far as I know, that house was lit up like a Christmas tree, and most of the lights in that house were on that evening. They had fairy lights, they had neon signs, the kitchen light was on. I think it would have been very easy to navigate that house, and the only way he wouldn't have seen Dylan is if he has visual snow. One girl, one leg. I have a question that no one's brought up. Were the lights turned on? Or was he going with the light from the TVs and stuff? I just don't see how he could have done this alone. I mean, like someone said, there had to be awful screaming. How does he pass away 2 people practically at one time when he went in and did the first victim and second victim would have woken up? Unless it comes up that he used a stun gun or something. I think there were plenty of lights on in that home for him to see exactly where he wanted to go and do what he wanted to do. And there's been a lot of similar crimes, unfortunately, where one perpetrator has done the same thing to multiple victims in the same room. You really don't need an accomplice for a crime like this when you're the only man holding a weapon and you're attacking defenseless people that are either sleeping, drunk, or caught off guard with nothing to protect themselves. Very British. Question: what do you think his motive was? There's so much going on in this case. From drugs, numerology, weird connections, possible accomplices, police associations, stalking, etc. At the moment, I tend to lean on a drug-related crime, but not exclusively. He has that look about him that he wants excitement and could only find it in planning a crime where he could use his intelligence to fool everyone. I wonder if there was a second car or a second person, too. Motive is typically very important in cases like this, but it's not always required. In my personal opinion, his motive was an advanced research study. I think it drove him mad researching all of these killers over the years in his college classes. He had posted on Reddit a study for an alleged college course that he wanted answers to. He craved and desired to know exactly what it would feel like to commit this type of crime. He just wasn't satisfied if anyone had even responded to his little Reddit questionnaire. He needed to know. His desire to know was like a flame burning inside of him. An itch that just couldn't be scratched until he scratched it himself. So that's what I think it was, an advanced research study. He wanted to be in law enforcement. He wanted to be a professor. He wanted to read about, research, and talk about crime every day, all day. But it was killing him to not know for sure what it truly felt like to commit a crime like this and get away with it or get caught. He just had to know. He needed to know. And now he knows. Allegedly. Wasim. One question I'm murky on is, where was Murphy at the time of the crime? Was he in the 3rd floor bathroom? Was he in Kaylee's old room? Would love your clarity on this. According to the arrest affidavit, Murphy was in Kaylee's old bedroom on the 3rd floor, and Kaylee was found in Maddie's bedroom. Marcus. Drip drop, as usual, some interesting info. Let us know how the people who have visuals know thought your presentation was. Well, I've only heard from a couple people so far, but they said I nailed it this time, so thank you. Marcus continues on. I have a somewhat out there question. Do you think there's a possibility that Bryan Kohberger didn't pass away Dylan because he intended to pass away 4 people just like BTK did in his first crimes at the Oteros? I do think that's a possibility because he was madly, deeply, truly obsessed with these sick criminals. So he wanted to be just like them because they were his idols. And it goes back to numerology. Bryan likes numbers. This case all revolves around numbers, just like all of our lives do.
Woman units, weapons offense, 1000 Lighthouse Street, 311A.
Okay, go ahead.
Third party report that there's someone pacing outside the DRP's bedroom with a...
Interrupt.
2039.
14682, by any chance don't have to identify the people there?
Subject in the bedroom is a Jordan 20s, and then a Brent, unknown last, 35-year-old male.
And which one supposedly has a gun?
First of Brent is outside the bedroom, possibly with a gun. Woman 47, clear the other call. Interrupt to weapon offense. 2040.
406 here in traffic.
2041.
Ballman 468, I see the one male got out of the apartment. Do you have a way to contact anyone so you can get him to move a ways away from the building?
We'll call back.
arriving on Laytown.
2043.
Responding units, I found a subject with a similar name who's in the past.
Copy. I see a light turning on and off in one apartment. It might be it. So I got the direction right.
10-9.
11468, any luck on finding that other person that got out?
My partner's talking to him now. I'm trying to get exact location.
.47 in the area.
Oh, 406.
Go ahead.
If there's any available WCPD units, if they could respond from the Bishop side and park near the Sun Rental building and walk in.
2045. 468 Pullman.
Go ahead.
Jordan's in the back parking lot. Dark gray jacket, blue pants, red and black striped shirt. He's the one speaking with my partner. He's the one that got out.
Copy. 0600, no contact him. Right. 4668. Correction, 4768.
Go ahead.
I believe it's going to be the top floor at your end. I saw a light coming on and off. If you want to keep an eye on that, you're here until we figure out what we got.
Copy.
447, 406.
Go ahead.
They're saying the windows overlook the parking lot side towards the main. Also, they're not entirely sure which windows belong to that apartment.
Copy. Is it the end apartment?
I believe they're describing it being between the two stairwells and on the top floor.
And speaking of this video right here, let's start it with a boom. For those of you that aren't familiar, Brent Kopacka was a soldier with PTSD, and he was shot and passed away forever from SWAT team in Pullman, Washington. He lived about 2 miles away from Bryan Kohberger. At around this exact moment in time, Bryan Kohberger and his father were being pulled over 2 times in a row in Indiana. They knew all about the shooting that was happening in Pullman, Washington. Bryan's father looked a little sketched out, and Bryan looked even more sketched out. If I was a police officer, I would have taken them both into custody just for the way they looked at me. But I guess it's good I'm not in law enforcement. Anyways, BLK, that's Brent Kopacka, lived approximately 2 miles away from Bryan Christopher Kohberger. That's BCK. Pullman, Washington is a small town, similar to Moscow, Idaho. I really don't think there's a whole lot of action that happens in these small towns in the middle of nowhere in Idaho and Washington, but apparently it was an action-packed couple of months between October 21st and December 15th, before, after, and everywhere in between. There's some really specific dates and times within, and we're going to have a brief discussion on some of those right here. Brent Kopacka was a soldier. He fought overseas in Afghanistan in Operation Freedom. He earned a Purple Heart because he developed a brain injury as he was overseas fighting for America. Thank you so much for serving, Brent Kopacka. We really appreciate you here at Crime Circus. And I know a lot of you ladies watching this right now really appreciate a man in uniform. And some of you men out there appreciate a man in uniform too. So shout out to all of you. Anyways, Brent had PTSD. He had some psychological issues. He struggled with life after he was discharged from the military. He lived in an apartment in Pullman, Washington. And we're going to take a look at some pictures right here and now. This is a picture of Brent Kopacka right here from his military days. He was a bit younger here from when he passed away in his late 30s in Pullman, Washington. But this is to give you an idea of what he looked like next to the American flag because he was an American soldier. This is a picture of Brent when he was a little older in his 30s. This is to give you a better representation of what he may have looked like when he passed away. Looking at this photo right here, this picture was posted by Brent Kopacka approximately 1 week before he was attacked by SWAT team in his own apartment. He posted it on his Facebook page and it says, "I see you too." And you can see the spelling is a bit odd and he didn't put any spaces in those words. I think that's some type of clue, but I'm just not sure what that clue means. Maybe one of you out there watching this right now understands this clue and can help me answer these questions. If so, leave a comment down below and let me know, what does ICQ2 mean? Is this any sort of reference to Inside Looking from Reddit? I'm going to put that picture on the screen right now. For those of you that may or may not remember, Inside Looking is rumored to have been Bryan Kohberger because this person on Reddit seemed to have a lot of inside information and they were acting super sketch. And quite a few Reddit users actually said that they reported that user to the FBI tip line as well as to the Moscow PD tip line. Within weeks of those tips coming in, Bryan Kohberger was under arrest and Brent Kopacka was passed away. So, quite interesting. Inside Looking had an eyeball as his profile picture, and for some reason, in the middle of all that happening, Brent Kopacka decided to post "I see you too" with a picture of his eyeball. We are going to take a super zoom into his eyeball as far as we can. There is a reflection happening inside of his eyeball. We may all see something a little different here, but I'd like to know what you see because what I see kind of disturbs me. But I don't want to be the one to plant any seeds in your mind, and don't read any other comments before you leave a comment if you're going to comment about what you think you see in the reflection of Brent's eye. This is a deceased soldier, and whatever we see in his eye may be a connection or a clue to what happened in Moscow, Idaho. But then again, it might not. We just don't know. This is a guessing show, folks. And I'm not going to spread misinformation on this show like some other channels may enjoy doing. Anybody mentioned in this video is presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. And none of this information is to be considered factual. That's a legal disclaimer. Moving on. Now let's proceed to the next item. I want to remind everyone out there, this man is 100% presumed innocent and presumed to have nothing to do with this crime. This is simply an open investigation because he involved himself in the case. He went to the national media. He keeps popping up, so he has to be looked into. A proper investigation without tunnel vision means you take a look at anybody and everybody that involves themselves in the case. He keeps saying Brent Kopacka is cleared, but he won't give up any information such as what is wrapped around that machete. What kind of car did Brent Kopacka drive? When's the last time he saw Brent before this? He keeps talking, but isn't saying relevant information to the answers we need to the questions we have. I certainly would love for him to reach out to me and answer all of my questions. This is an open challenge from one DD to another. I have certain questions that I'd really love for you to answer so we can put this to rest once and for all. I know some of you out there are still wondering, come on Drip Drop, where was Darren Duncan on November 13th? We're gonna get there. Stay tuned. On October 13th, he posts a picture of Halloween Ends. What movie did I mention in my previous video? Halloween Ends. The timing? Surely a coincidence. It's always a coincidence in this case. He wanted to take his family, including his very young children, to see this slasher. And if you're not familiar with Halloween Ends, check out my previous video. I discuss it briefly. If you want to know more about it, watch it or go on Google and read about it. On November 12th, 2022, he posts a picture of an Insane Clown Posse t-shirt. It's an image from their very first album called Carnival of Carnage. This shows me we may be dealing with a juggalo here. And for those of you that may not know, juggalos were labeled a loose hybrid gang according to the FBI. Some people think they're really dangerous. I'm not so convinced. I think they can be quite pleasant people, personally. They call themselves a loving family, not a violent gang. But this is a picture of the Carnival of Carnage, one day before the Moscow slaying. Let's see what else I've uncovered. There is a boom coming. On November 13th, 2022, at 3:14 a.m., he posts this picture of a little baby devil. What timing? That's right around when the crime allegedly took place. I wonder where that cell phone pings back to at that exact moment. Later on in the afternoon on November 13th, 2022, he says, "Best birthday card ever." And you can see it's dated November 13th, 2022. To Dad. You got Ghostface on there with a little heart. You've got a little knife. You've got a telephone. It says happy birthday. It says, what's your favorite scary movie? So coincidentally, on November 13th, it's Darren Duncan's birthday. Boom. Boom, boom. I told you I was leading up to a big boom, ladies and gentlemen. Darren Duncan, which sounds like a fake name to me personally. He goes by DD. I'm also DD. Surely a coincidence. This guy's obsessed with horror. He's obsessed with the scary stuff. He's obsessed with Ghostface and Michael Myers, allegedly. I personally don't think he has anything to do with this crime, but his birthday was on the date of the slaying. Yeah. This family really likes horror, and his kid is a really good artist. That's some good artwork. We're just investigating here. We're not making any accusations. This is a guessing show, and you know that. 5 days after the slayings, he posts this mask. This is a very creepy mask. This looks like a combination of Jason Voorhees and Ghostface. It's splattered in blood and blood is dripping from the eyes. This gives me chills and this might give me nightmares too. Only 11 days after the Moscow Massacre, he posts a picture of this. Bunny Man Massacre. Tubby has a lot of horror movies worth checking out. Currently watching this one. And in the small print, it says monsters are real. Inspired by true events. He really likes his horror movies. And oh yeah, he's in a band too. It's called Confront the Killer. And that's what I like to do here at Crime Circus. Confront the Killer. It says it's metal rap. You can see in the profile picture, he's covered in some sticky icky. He's got a song called Intro. And then the next song is called No Remorse. Interesting. Let's keep on keeping on, ladies and gentlemen. Here we have another picture to analyze. You can see Brent Kopacka in the back, and you can see DD in the front. And no, that's not me. I'm a different DD. I'm Drip Drop. Here's another picture of Brent Kopacka, and in front of him is standard playing cards. Chopping block. Horror block. That's an interesting set of cards to put in front of a deceased person's photos. Chopping block, horror block. And then zooming into the right side, you can see what looks like some sort of little skull with a horn coming out of it, and it's splattered in blood. This is creepy. This is some real horror movie stuff we're looking at here. And once again in the background we can see Ghostface with the little knife. It's alarming to see this sort of stuff, but maybe it all means nothing. This picture right here was posted only 4 days after SWAT team took out a Purple Heart soldier. No Purple Heart soldier deserves to be passed away by SWAT team. As they say, a dead man tells no tales. And he's certainly passed away now, so he won't be telling any tales. I bet you Brent had a lot of information to tell. Maybe not anything to do with this case. However, he was an airborne paratrooper, which means he had a really high IQ, and he was certainly good at mission-based operations and following orders. He was no punk and he was no dummy. And after he came home from Afghanistan with his Purple Heart, the reason he probably moved all over the country so much and so often is because he was probably Special Forces undercover operations. That's a real thing and that really exists, and who do you think they implement into those roles? People like Brent Kopacka, allegedly. Here we have a nice picture of this handsome man, Darren Duncan, from his wedding day. Just kidding, I don't know if that was from his wedding day. It's a random picture from his Facebook page. Zooming in, you can see he's got a little skull hanging off his necklace here. And those eyes are certainly scary. Here's a post from December 21st, 2022. Brent hunted these down for me and framed them for me. I was worried the other day I might not have enough stuff to remind me of him. But I keep seeing stuff and being like, oh yeah, I remember this. You can see it's artwork of Ghostface, Michael Myers, Chucky, miscellaneous horror movie stuff. It was a nice gift to give somebody that's into horror movies. Dee Dee's got a post that says, "This is the first real tattoo I got, and Brent paid for it. F-U-C-K, I miss him so much. I got to get a memorial tattoo of him soon. The cross and thorns we were supposed to get together as matching tattoos, but he moved to Washington, so I just ended up getting it anyway." So they were allegedly supposed to get matching tattoos. Does anybody out there want to get a matching tattoo with me? If so, leave a comment down below. We can discuss it, because matching tattoos are cool. It connects you for life. Anybody want to be connected for life? He randomly posted a picture of Elvira. I know Daylight Disinfectant loves this woman. She's a classic in the horror movie scene. Daylight Disinfectant also goes by DD for short. And he says I'm the new Elvira. Anyways, as you can see, there's a lot of DDs popping up at this circus. And Elvira even has DDs. Anyways, this is a family-friendly show.
So some people have been telling me not to trust in JLR. If you know who JLR, that's cool. There are some things in the past that he has said that I do not agree with. But right now, he's making a lot of sense, you guys. And stuff that I've kind of thought of as well. When it comes to Brent Kopacka. Now, I have shared a lot of Crime Circus's content, and he does talk about Brent quite a bit. And that's all on my page, so you can take a look. I don't know which one it is, but there's a lot. I share all of Crime Circus's stuff on the Idaho case here. But on the affidavit, remember that Bryan turned off his phone between a certain time. Now, there's a road right behind Brent's. And might I say, Brent and Bryan live very close to each other. Okay. And anyways, so there's a road right behind Brent's. It's the B's. BK, 2 BKs, go figure. Anyways, there's a road right behind Brent's apartment complex at the Coffee House Apartments that leads you to Moscow. And also, that is where the ping, like the last ping before the phone was turned off, was set. Like, Bryan was there. And apparently there was like a white sedan that was seen in those early hours that morning of November 13th. So, could he have picked up Brent, did what they needed to do? Maybe Brent was the DoorDash driver or the DoorDash delivery person. I don't know. And then maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. Theories, you guys, theories. Just a theory, no speculation. Like, it is a speculation, but no, I'm not accusing anybody. It's all alleged. But I think Brent was there with Bryan. And then Bryan, if you know this whole inside looking and I see you too, this was something else. I have commented on this as well in the past, and I still stand by that. Like, I believe that Brent Lee knew inside looking, which is BK. It's all starting to make sense. And if it is real, it makes sense. It still makes sense even if it's not real. So it's gotta be real, you know? Anyways, but I thought of this too. It's crazy.
Secret photos from a vault.